Going into Idaho from Montana, Lost Trail Pass. And this is up on Mount Drano, up by the cabins. We saw a couple deer up on the hill. A lot of wildlife in Idaho. And there's Frank Butchke's cabin. This is my great-grandfather. This video was taken in 1994, the summer of 1994. He built the cabin in the 1920s and mined Drano Creek for about 2 miles of it, placer mined it. He built the cabin himself. He built all of his own furniture, the doors, the window frames, just about everything. He even made some of his own tools. Had his own sawmill and blacksmith shop. And he had a car up there, a truck, and then he also had a horse. His horse's name was Frenchie. And this is the newer structure that was probably built just before he left. Might have been built by somebody else too after he left, I don't know. But it wasn't there when my dad was going up there. And this picture coming up will show the general area where he had his horse and his little garage for his car. But he lived there until World War II broke out, and he went up to Alaska and built army barracks. And then when he came back down, he never went back up to the mountain again. He lived down on the Salmon River in Chute. So that's where he was living for the last 30 years of his life, until about he died in 1976. This is the inside of the cabin. Shows this is Frank Butchke's cabin, and it shows pretty much how it is, or was in '94, probably still is now. Here's a picture of it in 1975. Some of his furniture was still there, which he made, and the floorboards were torn up, people looking for artifacts and gold and whatnot. I don't think he left any gold behind. The story goes that he went into Casabella nursing home with 2 quart jars of gold nuggets and asked if that was enough to take care of him for the rest of his life. But this is going out toward the front of the cabin. Might have been like the living area that he had. He had a lot of rooms in there, and my dad said that a lot of them were the blacksmith shop and other things that he used the cabin for. He only lived in a small section of it. The other parts were made for. There's his root cellar that was built right into the hillside. And the porch, the front porch. His garden was right out there. That's where he grew all his own vegetables, and he canned all his own vegetables. And deer meat as well. And that out there is where he basically dumped all of his garbage. People used to do that back then. You find whole piles and piles of tin cans. They didn't have garbage service, so that's where it all went. And that's the back end, the root cellar there going into the hillside. That's the cabin on the garden side, the front side. All the windows are broke out. There's no windows left. It's just the frames. And there's the porch. My dad said it was very quiet up there. He spent the whole summer in 1945 helping him mine. And then they lived up there in 35 and 36. There's me and my brother outside of the cabin in 1975, and there I am in 1995. It's 20 years apart. Maybe I'll go up there again and show you another picture. There's Leesburg, Idaho, and Since then, in 1995, that's Art Butchke's cabin. 1995, another gold mine went in, and they strip mined the Leesburg Basin. That's the inside of Art Butchke's cabin. My grandfather and my dad, as a little boy, lived there during the Depression. They built that cabin, and then he had his own little operation going where he pulled some gold out too. Back then you were required to sell your gold to the government. And this is now owned by a guy named Don Adams, or in 94 it was. Very nice man. We went and talked to him. He lives in Salmon, and he told us to go up to the cabin anytime we felt like it. He said anybody that's Butchke's are welcome to go up there. So there he is in his old bedroom, my dad. And it shows the bedrooms coming up here. There's his old bedroom right there. And they're still using it, or they weren't using it in 75, but they were using it in here. They got it pretty well fixed up for a camping cabin. And this is the front part of it. You can see how it looked in 1975. Pretty rough, rustic. There's Don Adams, the guy that owned the claims and the cabin and everything in 1994. My dad and I went up again in 1995, and that was the last time I've ever been up there, so haven't been there since. But that was Don Adams. There's the cabin on the outside, and there it is in 95 below and 75 above. And there it is, 1975. Me and my brother Scott, and that was 94. We stayed there, pitched a tent outside. You can't reach my great-grandfather's cabin. The road's washed out. You gotta walk down to it. It's about a mile away. But this you can drive to. This was hard to find in 94. There's my grandma, Cora, my dad, and I don't know the other fellow. Kirkpatrick, I think was his name. There's Cora and Art Butchke. There's my dad and Scott outside my grandfather's tailings. There's great-grandpa Butchke and Bob Butchke. And there's Scott, Bob, and Frank Butchke, 3 generations. There's 4 generations, Art, Frank, Tim, and Bob. And now we get to the fires, and this is the end of this video. And this is the fires that burned in 94 when we went up there, and we were getting ready to leave, and we noticed it was getting real smoky, so we went up on the hillside and saw this fire burning probably about maybe 5 miles away from where we were at. Burned, but it wasn't as big as it looks. We went down below the next day and looked up at it, and they had already gotten it pretty much put out. And it was caused by lightning. That's what I found out. There's a lot of lightning strikes in the area, and that's what causes most fires, I guess. A lot of people think it's caused by people, but most of them are caused by lightning. Very dry. It was very dry that summer. In fact, that was the summer of a lot of fires. There were so many fires that broke out that summer. The Leavenworth, Washington fires. Tons of fires over in Montana too, and then some more in Idaho. So it just seemed like there was fires everywhere that year. You could barely breathe in Wenatchee. It was so smoky. This was a little closer than I ever want to be to one, though. When we got out of there, we thought the fire was heading for the road, but as it turned out, it didn't. We probably didn't have to leave, but we went down around, so we felt like we were safer away from it, stayed in the campground. we're going to be going anyhow, so. But it didn't really spread that much because the wind wasn't that high, and so. And there's a little bit more here. Fires burning in Orofino, Idaho. That was on the way home. One fire after another. It just seemed like they were all over the place that year. So, well, that's about it. That's hopefully it was a enjoyable tape for anybody in the family or friends that want to look at this. I tried to improve it and get rid of the dog barking on it.